Welcome to the Hidden Truth Stories channel. Today, we're diving deep into an unexplored historical mystery. The air in the Peruvian highlands, thin and crisp, carried the scent of wet stone and wild mint, a fragrance that clung to Dr. Elias Vance like a second skin, a smell he'd come to associate with the thrilling, relentless pursuit of the past. He was a man defined by dust motes dancing in the shaft of a forgotten ruin, a historical archaeologist whose life's work had centered on the inexplicable gaps in the accepted narrative of the pre-Columbian Americas, convinced that the Inca were but inheritors of a far grander, much older civilization, a belief that had long branded him an academic pariah, but which now felt tantalizingly close to vindication, tucked away high in the remote Vilcabamba mountain range. Miles beyond the well-trodden Inca trail and any recognizable modern map, where a single, hand-drawn map inherited from his eccentric great-grandfather, an explorer who had vanished near these very peaks a century ago, guided his team through the swirling, high-altitude mist. The parchment, brittle and yellowed, spoke in cryptic script of the city of the Whispering Sun, a name Elias found both poetic and deeply foreboding, hinting at a secret history that lay not beneath the ground but woven into the very fabric of the landscape itself, hidden from casual eyes by the relentless, encroaching jungle and the protective cloak of the mountains, shifting weather patterns, a natural camouflage far more effective than any stone wall. The narrative establishes Elias' ambition and the mythical setting, emphasizing the map and the hidden nature of the Whispering Sun. His small expedition, consisting of himself, the quiet, indispensable Quechua guide named Mateo, and the brilliant, skeptical geophysicist Dr. Lena Hansen, who mostly served as Elias' pragmatic anchor, moved with slow, deliberate caution, each step a careful negotiation with the uneven, treacherous terrain, the silence of the immense mountains broken only by the rhythmic crunch of their boots on the mossy earth, and the occasional, distant cry of an unseen bird of prey circling high above. A stillness that somehow amplified the sense of profound isolation and the monumental scale of their endeavor. Lena, ever focused on the measurable world, stopped periodically to check the magnetometer readings, her brow furrowed in concentration as she monitored the subsurface anomalies, muttering to herself about unusual metallic signatures that didn't quite align with known geological formations, data which Elias took as confirmation that they were indeed on the right track, that something man-made and massive lay concealed just beneath the dense undergrowth. An ancient secret patiently waiting for the precise moment of rediscovery. The team dynamics are highlighted, shifting from atmospheric movement to scientific detection, confirming the hidden structure beneath the soil. Mateo, whose knowledge of the mountains was intuitive and absolute, paused suddenly, holding up a hand, his sharp eyes fixed on a cluster of oddly shaped stones half buried in the mud. They weren't natural boulders, but perfectly cut and fitted andesite blocks, weathered almost beyond recognition, forming a faint, straight line that sliced impossibly through the organic chaos of the forest floor. A silent testament to advanced engineering in a place that conventional history insisted should only contain primitive trails. A thrill, cold and electric, shot through Elias, a feeling he knew well, the precursor to a monumental breakthrough, the moment when the abstract theory finally collides with the undeniable physical evidence, and the world's understanding of itself shifts seismically. They spent the remainder of the day carefully clearing the area, using machetes and small hand trowels, the effort surprisingly arduous against the tenacious grip of the mountain flora, revealing inch by painstaking inch the true scale of the foundation. Not merely a retaining wall, but the crest of a monumental stairway, a series of cyclopean steps that seemed to descend straight into the heart of the mountain. The discovery phase begins with Mateo finding cut stone, leading to Elia's profound realization and the reveal of the monumental staircase. The steps were cyclopean in scale, their surfaces worn smooth not by human feet but by millennia of wind and rain, an architectural size far exceeding the known capabilities of the later Inca Empire, suggesting a civilization with a mastery of stonework and planning that was simply staggering. Lena's initial skepticism began to erode, replaced by a focused, scientific curiosity, her voice losing its edge of professional detachment as she pointed out the precision of the joints, noting how certain blocks exhibited faint but unmistakable tool marks, suggesting the use of incredibly hard, unknown implements. Certainly not the bronze or stone tools typically attributed to the region's ancient peoples. A detail that resonated deeply with Elia's own theories about the precursor culture he called the Viracocha builders, a term he'd coined for the legendary race mentioned in obscure, often dismissed indigenous myths. The narrative focuses on the engineering mystery, shifting Lena's skepticism to scientific intrigue and Elia's theory of the advanced Viracocha builders. This legendary race was said to have possessed knowledge lost even to the gods. The mist returned as twilight descended, thick and suffocating, swallowing the surrounding peaks and isolating them completely, transforming the newly uncovered staircase into a mysterious, spectral gateway to an underworld. The silence now heavy with an almost audible history, the air growing colder, carrying on its breath a subtle, earthy smell like ozone and buried charcoal, a strange odor that made the hairs on Elia's arms stand up. Whispering of ancient fires and forgotten rites performed long before recorded time. The descent began at dawn, a nerve-wracking plunge into the mountain's shadow, the massive steps slippery with dew and age, demanding absolute concentration with every placement of their feet. After what felt like an hour, they reached a broad, flat plaza, entirely enclosed by sheer rock walls, a hidden pocket within the mountainside. The tone darkens into spectral atmosphere and foreshadowing, followed by the physical challenge of the descent into the newly discovered, concealed plaza. The plaza was a place utterly untouched by the jungle, preserved in a state of suspended animation, dominated by an immense, perfectly preserved structure. A temple unlike anything ever found in the Andes, constructed of colossal, polygonal blocks fitted together with a precision that defied logic, the surfaces of the stones shimmering faintly, almost metallically, in the diffuse light filtering down from the narrow opening above, a soft, ethereal glow that made the entire space feel like an indoor cathedral carved from pure moonlight. Lena set up her ground-penetrating radar, her movements swift and professional, her excitement barely contained beneath a veneer of scientific rigor, the monitor blinking with a labyrinthine network of subsurface chambers extending far beneath the plaza floor, a whole subterranean city waiting to be explored. The discovery of the temple shifts the tone to awe and intense scientific focus, as the GPR reveals the massive subterranean extent of the ruins. Mateo, however, remained motionless near the entrance, his dark eyes wide and troubled, murmuring a prayer in Quechua, his cultural instinct clearly registering a powerful, unsettling spiritual presence, a deep-seated reverence and fear for this sacred, secret place, urging caution in a tone that transcended mere professional advice. Elias approached the central temple structure, his hand trailing across the cool, smooth stone, noting the strange, deeply incised symbols covering the facade, glyphs that resembled no known ancient script, a swirling geometric pattern that seemed to vibrate with a silent, unseen energy, hinting at complex astronomical or mathematical concepts far beyond the scope of any known contemporary civilization. a forgotten language speaking directly to his heart, demanding interpretation, challenging his every assumption about the linearity of human progress. The spiritual danger is emphasized through Mateo's reaction, contrasting with Elia's intellectual drive to decipher the powerful, unknown glyphs. A low, resonant humming, almost below the threshold of human hearing, began to emanate from the largest monolithic block near the temple entrance, a sound that seemed to vibrate in their very bones, a deeply soothing yet undeniably artificial noise that intensified as Elias drew closer, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He traced the outline of a particularly complex glyph, a circle within a stylized crescent, bisected by a jagged line, and as his finger moved across the stone, the humming abruptly ceased, and with a slow, grinding sound that echoed deafeningly in the confined space, a section of the massive wall, nearly 10 feet high and just as wide, slid silently inward, revealing a perfectly dark, vertical passage that smelled faintly of dry air and ancient, undisturbed mineral dust. The narrative shifts dramatically from stillness to mechanical action. The humming leads to the activation of the colossal stone mechanism. The sudden, dramatic shift in the structure's appearance confirmed that this was not merely a ruin, but a mechanism, a colossal machine of stone built to withstand millennia, waiting only for the correct touch, the correct sequence, a silent lock yielding to a key etched not in metal but in pure, geometric design. Lena quickly donned her headlamp and breathing mask, her movements swift and professional, her excitement barely contained beneath a veneer of scientific rigor, urging caution but clearly ready to plunge into the unknown, her scientific curiosity overriding all fear. Elias exchanged a look with Mateo, who shook his head subtly, his expression one of deep, abiding respect for the power they were about to disturb, but ultimately stepping aside, allowing the foreigners to proceed, recognizing their unstoppable drive, a drive he understood to be part of their destiny. Elias took a deep breath, the air thick with the promise of revelation, and with the beam of his headlamp slicing into the impenetrable blackness, he stepped across the threshold into the city of the Whispering Sun. The tone focuses on shared commitment and the final threshold crossing, stepping into the absolute unknown. The passage was a narrow, perfectly straight tunnel, its walls polished smooth, running horizontally for what felt like an impossible distance, occasionally punctuated by small, recessed niches containing strange, metallic artifacts that crumbled instantly to dust when touched, remnants of a vanished technology whose purpose could only be guessed at. Perhaps illumination, or communication, or maybe even energy transmission. The floor suddenly dropped away into a vast, cavernous space, a subterranean chamber of truly monumental proportions, easily the size of a football stadium, lit not by external light, but by a soft, constant bioluminescence emanating from the ceiling, a network of crystalline filaments embedded in the rock, casting a faint, pervasive blue-green glow that made the air feel perpetually twilight. Here, the true city lay revealed, not of crude stone, but of polished black obsidian and smooth white marble, a metropolis preserved in time, complete with tiered buildings, wide avenues, and central plazas. The environment changes completely, moving from the narrow tunnel to the breathtaking, luminous reveal of the preserved subterranean city. This metropolis was a masterpiece of subterranean architecture that dwarfed any known ancient settlement. The silence here was absolute, profound, a pressure that pushed against the eardrums, broken only by the faint echo of their own breathing and the occasional drip of water, a rhythmic sound that counted out the passage of forgotten eons. Lena moved immediately toward a large, pedestal-like structure in the center of the main plaza, its surface covered with the same complex geometric glyphs as the temple exterior. A central information point, perhaps the key to the entire complex. Elias, however, was drawn to the perimeter, where the walls were covered floor to ceiling in intricately carved murals, depicting scenes that immediately shattered every preconceived notion he held about human history. Not just pictures of people, but of beings, tall and slender, with elongated features and eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light. The focus splits between Lena's technical investigation and Elias' absorption of the shocking, non-human historical depiction in the murals. The murals showed these beings interacting with astronomical symbols, manipulating energy fields, and building structures with focused beams of light. A vision of an ancient world possessing a level of science and societal organization that seemed closer to science fiction than archaeology. The narrative of the murals was cyclical, chronicling the rise and fall of this progenitor culture, detailing a time when they possessed extraordinary powers and lived in harmony with the forces of the cosmos, followed by a decline marked by conflict and environmental catastrophe, leading ultimately to their self-imposed exile, or perhaps their complete transmutation. The final, most haunting mural showed a small group of the tall beings gathering in this very chamber, placing a single, pulsating orb onto the central pedestal, surrounded by the indigenous people, the ancestors of the Quechua, who were shown kneeling in reverence, receiving instruction, implying that the Viracocha builders had not vanished, but had deliberately passed on their knowledge and responsibility before departing, leaving behind a crucial, powerful legacy. The story shifts to the detailed lore of the builders, focusing on their advanced knowledge, their decline, and their deliberate transfer of a core artifact, the pulsating orb. Elias understood then that this wasn't just a ruin, but a library, a time capsule left for the inheritors of the planet, a secret history hidden in plain sight, encoded in myth and stone. Lena managed to activate the pedestal, a beam of soft, golden light shooting up to the ceiling, illuminating a hidden inscription that suddenly translated itself in Elias' mind, a direct cognitive leap beyond mere linguistic comprehension, a message not written for the eyes, but for the mind, stating simply. The knowledge is dormant, protected from the unworthy age. It awaits the time of convergence, when the sun and the whisper are one, a cryptic final instruction that only deepened the mystery of their departure. The orb, the object of the mural, was gone, clearly taken by the indigenous people when they evacuated the city, implying that the most important artifact was not here in the ruin, but still existed somewhere in the highlands, perhaps safeguarded by a hidden lineage of keepers. The focus moves to the activation of the central data point, and the immediate, powerful cognitive transmission of the builder's final message. The air grew perceptibly warmer, the blue light intensifying, the rhythmic drip of water speeding up, a palpable sense of closure settling over the massive chamber, as if the space itself had completed its task, its story now told, its secret unveiled to the world. A subtle vibration began beneath their feet, a deep, harmonic tremor that was not violent but persistent, accompanied by the low, resonant hum returning, only this time much louder, much closer, the sign of a massive mechanism winding down, its purpose fulfilled. A small, flat panel near the pedestal, previously indistinguishable from the surrounding stone, slid open, revealing a sealed scroll case crafted from a material that resembled solidified, woven moonlight, clearly the final, physical piece of the puzzle, a tangible artifact that bridged the chasm between the mythical builders and the historical record. The atmosphere changes again, signaling an irreversible automated sequence. The chamber closes its narrative, revealing a final, critical physical artifact. Elias carefully retrieved the case, the stone walls groaning audibly as the large entrance to the tunnel began to slowly grind shut. The mechanism clearly programmed for a one-time revelation and a permanent resealing, protecting the sacred space for another indeterminate period, perhaps centuries, until another convergence of the sun and the whisper. A sudden, urgent voice broke the monumental silence, sharp and concerned. It was Matteo, appearing seemingly out of nowhere, having followed them down some hidden, secondary passage, his expression strained, his eyes conveying a grave warning that transcended language. He pointed to the rapidly closing entrance, and then to a small, nearly invisible fracture running down one of the main obsidian columns, a flaw in the ancient perfection, a sign that the seismic shift had not been merely symbolic, but a genuine structural consequence of the mechanism's activation, a final test of worthiness. The tone abruptly shifts to rising tension and immediate danger, signaled by Matteo's warning and the physical failure, the structural fracture of the ancient mechanism. There was no time for discussion, no moment for analysis, only the pressing reality of the closing gap, the imminent entombment. Lena, relying on her years of experience in high-pressure fieldwork, reacted instantly, grabbing Elia's arm, shouting a single, wordless command to run, her scientific pragmatism shifting effortlessly into pure survival instinct, knowing that the structural integrity of the millennia-old chamber was now compromised, its temporary purpose served. They ran, a desperate scrambling dash back through the narrow, straight tunnel, the air now heavy with dust and the unmistakable smell of ozone, the rhythmic grinding of the colossal closing stone blocks sounding like the death knell of a forgotten age, urging them onward with a terrifying urgency. The light from the entrance narrowed to a sliver, threatening to extinguish their escape route. But the sight of the open sky, the taste of the sharp, clean mountain air, fueled their last, exhausting burst of speed. The pace quickens into a frantic, desperate escape sequence, emphasizing the sensory details of the grinding stone and the smell of ozone. They burst out onto the massive stone steps just as the entrance block slammed home with a deafening, final boom, a sound that reverberated through the entire mountain range, triggering a small, contained rock slide that neatly covered the immediate area surrounding the temple, completing the resealing process, erasing all trace of the passage and the plaza, burying the city of the Whispering Sun once again beneath the protective mantle of the Vilcabamba. Exhausted, covered in dust and adrenaline, they collapsed onto the mossy earth, the silent witnesses to a monumental closing, the triumphant survivors of a terrifying archaeological time limit. The silence that followed was different now. No longer the heavy historical pressure, but a peaceful, reverent stillness, as if the mountain itself had sighed in relief, the secret preserved, the story told to the chosen few. The immediate danger concludes with the final, resounding closing of the tomb, transitioning to a moment of exhausted, reverent peace and the success of their survival. Lena, recovering her breath, simply stared back at the featureless rock face, her pragmatic world utterly transformed by the impossible reality of what she had seen and touched, the sheer scale of the discovery overwhelming her intellectual framework, the data now irrevocably confirming the existence of a civilization that should not have been, a paradigm shift secured not in a journal, but in their memory. Elias, clutching the scroll case, the moonlight-woven container feeling surprisingly light but undeniably potent, looked at Matteo, who simply offered a knowing, serene smile, a silent acknowledgement that the foreigners had found what they sought. Yet the true key, the pulsating orb, the whisper, remained where it belonged. With its rightful keepers, the story of the ancient ones now shared, but their legacy still protected. The future of the ancient knowledge resting solely on the interpretation of the sealed scroll, and the subsequent pursuit of the Orb of Convergence. The real adventure only just beginning. The final, undeniable truth of the Viracocha builders now held within his trembling hands. A new dawn of human history breaking over the silent, watchful peaks of the Andes. The story settles into reflective resolution, synthesizing the intellectual and spiritual consequences of the discovery and setting the stage for the next, implied quest. This mysterious journey ends here, but stay tuned for more untold stories in our next video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories. Thank you, and see you again.